Hi folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report. As you fish the waters of our North Country, and we know we've got some wonderful ones from the St. Lawrence River where you can go out right now, and there's been a lot of great reports of walleyes being caught in our area. But I want to share with you a lure or an offering that you can make to them, no matter what them is. That's something I don't talk about a lot, and that is the wacky worm. Or, I think a better way of putting it is, a worm that you choose to use, a 5-inch worm, a 4-inch. 4-inch is getting a little small, but let's say a 4 or 5-inch worm, and instead of hooking it the way we've always tended to hook our artificial worms, Texas rigged or with a little jig head or something, you'd run the hook right through the middle of the worm. So now when it hits the water, it's going to fall down with each end from the middle going in a different direction. And it looks very similar to not just a worm, but it looks like a bait fish that is dying. And when they die, they flutter down in the same way a wacky worm will go down. The other advantage is if you get a strike hooking a worm like this with a hook in the middle, then chances are no matter where that fish hits it, that hook is going to be closer to their mouth. You want obviously to go inside their mouth, but a lot of times a fish will come up if they're not really certain it's what they want. They'll just bite a bit of it to sort of taste it, to try it. And a lot of times we'll set the hook and we won't have the hook in them. Well, if the hook's right in the middle, no matter which side or how they tend to hit this, it's a good chance the hook's going to be there. Now, the hooks that you use for wacky worms are different. They're not long. They're not bent like a Texas rigged hook would be. They're short, and they're almost like circle in design. So even if you hook the fish, it tends not to swallow it. It's really a great way to fish. A lot of times you'll get a lot more strikes using a worm wacky rigged than if you Texas rig it, because it's going to fall different in the water. It's going to look completely different. Well, here's one of the reasons I haven't talked a lot about it, because for my own fishing in the Grass River, the Racket, the St. Regis, wherever I go and wade, anything that hits the bottom is prone to snag, because the bottom of these streams is just rock after rock after rock, different sizes. So if your lure, no matter what that lure is, goes along the bottom, any exposed part of it is going to eventually snag. And I do everything I can to keep from snagging. If it's a Texas rigged worm, your hook point isn't going to snag in the bottom because it's inside the worm itself. So it's a lot easier to fish and not get snagged all the time. Wacky worms, I always ended up snagging them because your hook point is exposed. However, it hit me this morning looking at pictures of wacky worms from this company that a lot of times they'll rig them like where the hook point comes back in. And all you got to do is bend that worm a little bit and just bury the hook point in it. And now, even though it's wacky rigged, it's not going to be snagging as much. You can cast it into heavier cover. So it's given me a whole nother reason to go out and start fishing wacky worms again, because I already knew they were wonderful. If you take a new person fishing that has hardly fished before and you want to give them the best thing to try to get as many strikes and catch as many fish as you can, there's nothing better than rigging up a worm wacky style for them. They're going to have a lot better luck. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report.